Hello and welcome to Religion and Life. I'm your host, Ozzie. Virtually every major religion has the expectation, if not the mandate, to do good works or charity. In Christianity, this impulse to serve others often comes in the form of missions. My guests today, Ben Henderson and Ranny Nimocks, have been busy lately contributing to the welfare of others through mission activities sponsored by their local church. Welcome, Ranny and Ben. I appreciate you coming today, and I look forward to hearing about your adventures in the mission field. I know that both of you recently went on a trip sponsored by Boone United Methodist Church to Selma, Alabama, and I want to come back to that and hear about that. But I'd like to give you just an opportunity to quickly introduce yourself. And I know you both have had former lives before what you're doing now, but introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about how you view missions and why you're attracted to working in the mission field as you do. Ben, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. I'll go for it. Whatever. Let's see. What I did in the past.
Yeah.
I've had a couple careers. I worked in public health for almost 20 years. And then my wife and I owned a store here, a natural food store called Bear Essentials Natural Market. Sold that in 2016. I've done I worked as a development director for the Humane Society for a little while, and and then most recently, in the last paid job I have and will probably ever have is in real estate. So I consider myself a reformed realtor. I'd never been on a mission trip. Well, let me back up by talk about service, because that's really, I think my whole career has been about service. My whole life seems to be, has been about service. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying I learned this from my family. Service was important to them. They were very involved in our church. They did things for other people. And that's what service is all about, and that's everything that I've ever done, whether it's been in public health, the service component of being in business, providing a service as a realtor, and then this most recent service aspect was, for me, something that I always wanted to do, because I'd watch on TV over the years and these disasters, and I'd send money, but I felt like there's something else we could do. I mean, I'd really rather. I want to get out there. I want to really help people. And unfortunately, most natural disasters, I think, a lot of people are forgotten after they occur.
Right.
So I just wanted to be on the ground, doing something with my, doing something physical. I didn't realize it was going to be in 104 degree temperature, but as the first thing. But I'm pretty hooked now, and I'll talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, I want to come back to that. And Randy, how about you? Tell us a little about yourself and your attraction to doing mission work.
I was born and raised and spent my entire work life in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in commercial real estate. And I claim to be retired now. I'm not actually. I'm about 90% retired at this point, but still have a little work going on in Fayetteville. First mission trip I went on was with my Sunday school class in Fayetteville to Puebla, Mexico, a number of years ago. And that was to a location down there with some college students that were working as missionaries at the university there. And they were the son and daughter-in-law of one of our class members. So we spent a week there, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I never felt like I had time to do what I wanted to do when I was working. Right. So I knew when I got to retirement stage that I would be doing some kind of volunteer work, and I considered the church, obviously. I considered Samaritan's Purse. I considered Appalachian, which I was a graduate of Appalachian. And But missions to me is reaching out to other people in need, and it's just an extension of, I think it's an extension of my Christian faith.
Yeah.
And I have always received more reward, joy, personally, knowing that I've helped someone that was in need, rather than looking internally at what I can gain for myself.
Well, as I listen to both of you speak, I can sense the level of commitment you have here toward service. And when I was growing up, sometimes missions in my mind meant people leaving for a foreign country and living there for years and preaching and converting people and giving out Bibles. But this kind of mission impulse is really oriented toward on-the-ground service to others, it sounds like. And both of you are, or at least this trip here that we're talking about, was a disaster relief type experience.
And in our own country. I mean, not that I wouldn't go somewhere else, but it's kind of convenient. And again, I'll talk about the convenience of missions up here.
Yeah. And it seems to me like there's a real need, right? And I guess this is it's all over our country.
Yeah.
There are disasters happening, but there's also a homelessness crisis, a crisis of poverty, and the missions that you guys are interested in address those things as well. I went to the church website just to look at what the missions emphasis was, and I'll read this to you, and maybe you can react to it. But there's one place on the website that says, God cares for the poor, the suffering, the orphans, the widows, the foreigners, and he expects his people to do the same. So you two are driven by this kind of internal desire to help, but do you feel like the Christian faith has an expectation for all people in the church to help others, maybe not through missions, but through some sort of service activity?
Well, I feel like we've all got some form of talent. We've got different talents, and we can use them in different ways. If I've got a talent or a skill or financial capability to help someone else, then I'm gonna use it. Now, the next person may be working in a mission field in a totally different way. We're supposed to, in the Christian faith, we're supposed to go into the world and make disciples. Well, we can't all be preachers, and we can't all be professors of religion. But
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
We've got enough of those already. So.
But some of us can do hands-on work, and it's not that I'm that skilled, but I'm willing to learn to do what I can to help where I can.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this particular mission trip, was we had people with all different skill levels, and some they thought were no skill levels. I'm kind of one of those. I told our team leader, you don't want me near a hammer or a saw or a wheelbarrow is about the best I could do, and I ended up becoming a fairly decent mudder and sander of sheetrock.
Yeah.
But there were people that just there's a place for everybody on this trip, and I think probably, and it was really cool to see how it evolved. We all drove down there. It was about an 8-hour drive, and we got to know each other, the people in the cars, because we were all in individual cars. And then we got there, and we had a meal together, and we had devotions, and we kind of talked about the next couple of days. But we walked into this place, and it was, I don't think any of us had any idea what we were getting into.
No, the initial reaction, I think everyone's initial reaction was, this is a teardown.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so it was a particular house.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some pictures here that we can put on the screen behind us and talk about them a little bit. But just to recap, it's Selma, Alabama, and it's
August 1st.
August 1st
of this year. Yeah.
Following a storm.
Following tornadoes in January.
Okay.
And I will say that they haven't even begun to recover. Actually, they still had recovery from probably disasters 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, the place is totally neglected, and it's still very, I won't get on my rant here too much, but it's still very much a, one side of town has nice sidewalks and nice houses, and the other side is pretty bad.
And that's a shame, because Selma is associated with important historic era of the civil rights movement. And I've got a second picture here before we get to the house, just a couple of things here that that characterize Selma, but there's a historic bridge, if we can get that second picture up, in Selma that represents the civil rights movement. And on this bridge, the kind of first encounter with protesters happened, and it was violent, and police clashed with peaceful protesters.
We did get to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Okay.
It was quite an experience for all of us, I think, and there's a rather makeshift museum there, a voting rights museum, and it looks like it's just was not an afterthought, but is a privately funded, I guess, remembrance complete with Ku Klux Klan outfits and whips and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there was John Lewis was severely beaten there, as well as a number of other men, women, and children.
Okay, we get the second or third pictures up here as we talk about. There's the Edmund Pettus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a national landmark now, I think. And the third picture we have is a plaque there commemorating the event known as Bloody Sunday. So you weren't working all the time. You got to see a little bit of.
We did take the one afternoon off.
Okay. So the next picture here might give you an idea of what you were doing on your afternoon off. I mean, you can't go to Selma without a little barbecue, right?
This was the last night we were there, and we went to this tiny little place, and you see that guy looking at us. I guess they're like,
what's going on?
It was very small, and we had to sit at multiple tables. But it was we were supported by our church, and they fixed casseroles and things for us. So when we got home at night, we threw those in the oven, and except for this meal and one night, some of the church members, church ladies, fixed us they bought a meal and brought it in, but it was from another restaurant. So.
Well, I think the next picture up here is of the house that you were working on. Does that bring back memories?
Oh yeah.
So this is a home. Now, was it damaged in the tornado, or had it just fallen into disrepair, or both?
Both.
Okay.
She had a roof torn off, and she had just had that replaced. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right.
Because we were not, it wasn't like a formal introduction. We all walked in and we were just speechless, and as Ranny said, we were thinking this house just should come down. But this is the only house this woman has ever known.
So there was someone living here.
She wasn't there then. She'd been out for about 6 months.
Okay.
Since the tornadoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at.
And the pictures can never do this justice.
Right.
No, the interior looks considerably worse than the exterior.
Yeah.
I think here's an interior picture, and this. Does this represent how the house was when she was living in it?
The entire house looked like this.
Okay, so
no sheetrock at all.
We really don't know what condition it was in when she was living in it, but this is post-tornado condition.
There may have been a ceiling up there. We don't know that. There were, you could see light coming through the walls all the way around. And this hallway her bathroom is on the other side of this wall. And it was a tiny hallway. You couldn't get a wheelchair through there if you wanted to. I mean, if she ever needed to, she wouldn't be able to live in the house if she was wheelchair bound.
Did you work on the accessibility issues while you were there? So that
No.
Okay.
No, we just didn't have time. We did this room had a floor that was collapsing, and it was unsafe to walk on.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And the construction coordinator said, just forget about that room. We're just going to board it up. And our crew said, no, we're not going to leave it.
We came here to fix it, and so that's what we did.
So you shored up that floor and put a new floor in.
Yeah.
I see some electrical outlets around. Was the wiring safe? Or did you,
we didn't get into wiring,
did you do
we?
any wiring work? Or?
Wiring work was at a minimum,
Okay.
but there was nothing in this house that was up to any kind of code.
No, nothing, including the kitchen sink, which basically straight piped out into the yard.
Oh my. Okay.
So there was it didn't go down into the septic system.
Gray water just went out.
Yeah, the gray water just went out. Unfortunately, it's just gray water, but
Right.
it just goes out and onto the ground.
Okay. So let's see what the next picture is. Oh, there we go. Okay, at least you were wearing your safety goggles.
Oh,
here.
believe me.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah.
But I see in the background. I mean, things are looking better here.
Yeah. You
there's
see
sheetrock
how there's no square or straight angles in this house, and that's evidenced by that little that line there.
I see. Yes,
Yeah.
where it's kind of wavy in the ceiling.
Yeah.
But certainly, this is Randy. This is the room with the saggy floor, right? I mean, it's the same room in the hallway.
No, this is
that
the
a
living
different
room. This is the
Okay,
living room.
okay.
You go straight through here to the kitchen.
Okay. All right.
But all of the work in both of those rooms was done while we were there.
Yeah.
Okay. So all this sheetrock
Yep.
work was
Yep.
y'all did
Yep.
in a week's time.
Correct.
Okay. So let's see what the next picture has for us.
Yeah. Move on.
Yeah, I thought that was. I don't know if we have any more pictures of the house, but I wanted to end with this one because it was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben, I think you took this picture. Was that in the church that was sponsoring you there?
Yes.
Okay.
They had some gorgeous stained glass. It's a beautiful church. We got a tour of it one evening.
Well, I can tell by these pictures, y'all worked hard. And as you said, it was 100+ degrees. So what kind of condition was it in when you left? Was it livable, or was there more work to be done by other groups? Or
I'll let you speak to that, Randy.
Yeah.
There was still some additional work that needed to be done, but it was in a livable condition when we left.
Mm-hmm.
There was still some finishing on the sheetrock and painting that needed to be done that we were unable to get to.
So you provided the labor for free. Where did the funds for the materials come from?
The district, the western, Southern Alabama, Western Florida district, I think,
Right.
of the United Methodist Church. And they provided the funds as well as a coordinator, a guy named Bud, who and just drove his trailer up the first day and has all kinds of construction equipment in it, and just kind of turned us loose.
Whatever they were short with, we ended up going to building supply and purchasing.
Yeah.
There wasn't even there really wasn't even an adequate building supply within 20 miles, I think, they had to go to Lowe's, and it's 20 miles away.
Selma's a very economically depressed area,
Yeah.
and you could see that going and coming to the house every day.
So how many people were on your team from?
There are 18 of us.
18 from Boone United Methodist. And was there any other team there? This was just this.
No.
So it's really kind of a coordinated effort between the local church here in Boone, the district down there that was provided funding, some local folks on site down there. And who put all this together? Who was the logistics person?
That was Anders.
Yes.
Up here was the
Duke
intern.
Yeah, that was his project for the summer.
Okay.
And then down there they had Bud was the construction coordinator.
All right. So, but this is not the only mission work going on. I mean, Randy, you were telling me about a trip you took to Canton. Could you briefly describe what you did there? Nick, this is Canton, North Carolina, west of Asheville.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was August a year ago, and we were there in August a year ago from previous flooding that happened the previous August. So by the time we got there, relief had been working in that area for 12 months. And we had a couple of different groups. We divided up. There were 5 of us that went to one house, and then the rest of us worked on another property in Canton. But the house that we worked on, the lady that lived there, who was as sweet as anybody you've ever met, she was actually one of Billy Graham's nurses. She brought us homemade apple pies and ice cream during the day while we were working on her house. She was in a very remote area. She was fortunate the drive to her house was not washed out in this flooding. But the kitchen was destroyed from flooding, the incline behind her house. And they had to, they actually took the roof off, well, they took the floor out, jacked the house up, the kitchen up, and then put a new roof on it on the back of the house. So we were really working on a kitchen the whole time we were there. And by the time we left, it was a functional kitchen, and she was going to be able to move back in her house. She had been out of her house for a year. Wow. And she was so thrilled. I mean, just sweet a lady as you'll ever meet.
So these are wonderful stories, and I know that you're both, sounds like you're both going to keep going on these trips, but it's not all about going other places. You're both pretty active in mission work here locally. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some opportunities here, or the type of work you're doing in the Boone area, Watauga County area.
Tell us about the ramps. I'm interested to hear about that.
We've got a group from Boone United Methodist Church that works through WAMI. Are you familiar with WAMI?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And you might just tell us what that is.
Well, you might tell us what it is.
Watauga, Avery, Mitchell, Yancey, Community Action Agency.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. They help us identify different families in need, and we have been going out building handicap ramps for people that are in need of a ramp. We've got one fella who has done a lot of these ramps previously before he came to Boone, and we've got several folks that work with us that are very familiar with construction and building, and so that's one thing that I've gotten involved in, and the other thing is volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, which is I've gotten a lot of satisfaction out of. Worked on, well, I guess this was the third house that I've worked on up here since I've been here for 2 years.
And I know a little bit about those ramps. There's quite a bit of engineering that goes into those, because every situation is different, number of steps, height of steps, and everything else. So you got to go on site, and it's quite a bit of work there. You got
to go on site and see what you're dealing with, and then we don't just put it together randomly. One of the fellows does a scale drawing of exactly what we need to get materials, and so we're working from a plan.
Yeah, that's great. Ben, tell us a little bit about what you're involved with.
Well, I'm on the board of Hospitality House, and that's just, trying to house people or find situations for people. Right now we have, I think in our community, over 100 people just camping, living in the woods, thinking about what they're going to do for the winter time.
Okay, so 100 people have no home, no place to live.
Right.
They're camping in the woods.
And they don't want to. They don't want to stay at the Hospitality House, or they can't stay at the Hospitality House for whatever reason. And there's a variety of reasons.
What will happen to them come winter? I mean, this is.
They'll get cold. They'll get sick. Okay. They will. I know, and I wasn't on the board with Hospitality House. last year, but we had some very cold, below zero temperatures for about 3 or 4 days. And Hospitality House, I know, had people in the hallways, had people in the waiting room, had people sleeping on the floor, and some of the people who had been asked not to come back to Hospitality House stayed under the portico outside, and with blanket. They gave them blankets and brought them hot drinks and food and that sort of thing. So, and then we have the church has what's called the community response team, and people call our church asking for they need assistance, and so the volunteers take the calls. We are on call 1 week at a time, and we take the calls and deal with things like, I was on call last week, had 8 calls. A disabled woman who's getting ready to have surgery and is going to need to go back and forth for rehabilitation and checkups, and she had a car that had the tires were falling apart. The wires were sticking out of the tires. Talked to a woman, 59-year-old woman, who was sleeping in her car and didn't know where she was going to go from there. People that are, women who lost 2 weeks of work because of COVID, and now is being threatened with eviction. So there are a lot of that, and we have kind of a list of resources that we can call on, and we try to, as best we can, cobble together help for these folks. People that are, their power's being shut off. Had one of those. It's an endless. I mean, you name it, and it happens.
So, just for people who may not know, the Hospitality House provides temporary housing for people in crisis.
Right.
Also provides hot meals for
correct.
residents there and others who can come in.
Right.
And a wonderful resource in our county. It's just that it sounds like the need outstrips, as good as the Hospitality House is, that the need is greater than the ability of local resources to meet those needs.
And the Hospitality House over the years has added a mental health component, because that's a large percentage of the need is our mental health resources. A lot of these folks are in crisis, mental health crisis, and that's why they don't have a place to live. It's just, it's a crisis for a lot of people. And one of the reasons I got into this, because, and I bet you did too, is because we've been blessed throughout our lives. I've never wanted for anything. I thought that I wanted stuff, but I didn't have it near as bad as some of the folks that we've been dealing with, and the people that we did work on a couple other houses in Alabama that we were kind of side jobs. So it was. Well,
I'm amazed at what you two are doing. I know there's many more in our community like you who are giving of their time and resources to help others, coming from a faith-based resource and perspective. And thank you. I mean, this is important work, and it makes me feel good to know that there are people out there willing to do that. So I appreciate you coming on the program today, but also to encourage others to get involved with activities like this. Ben and Ranny, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for Religion and Life for this week. I hope you'll join us next week when we take a look at the American temperance movement. And I don't know who my guest will be, but I guarantee you he or she will be very interesting. So join us on App TV next week, and until then, this is Ozzie Ostwald.